This week, Micah's not too happy with what he's seen so far from Tears of the Kingdom. Which game mode holds more value, quality or performance? How many hundreds or thousands of hours have we spent on our favorite games? And lastly, strategy guides. Did we use them? Did we make them? Question mark. Hit that power button. It's time to pixelate. Welcome back to PixelHate, where the H is silent, but the hate is loud as shit. Today, you are going to be enjoying the discussions, the topics, and the opinions of myself. I'm Adam. I'm joined today by Jamal Wope and my nephew, Micah, aka Mikey OQ. I'm very excited about the conversations that we're going to have today. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with our good game, bad game of the week. Good game, bad game.
All right, so real quick, I finally got over the hump of my decision paralysis and I decided to start playing Hi-Fi Rush. Amazing game. I don't know what took me so long.
Mm-hmm.
The rhythm combat is so much fun. It's so colorful. It's so bright. The dialogue can be a little cheesy, like you said, very Saturday morning cartoon, but I love it.
It fits the game. It fits the game.
It really
well.
does. It really does. I think the characters they're exciting. They're nothing too special. I feel like they fit the mold. They fit together well. Enemies are really cool. NPC robot conversations, them doing their little jobs. I think it's hilarious. I could easily see Bethesda making a sequel out of this, and I would love to see what goes on with that universe. I don't really see any like glaring flaws. I'm only on track 3. I got like 3 hours, maybe 3.5 hours into it, but I love that, and that's my good game for the week. My bad game for the week, Adam, actually is seeing you on stream without facial hair. Every single time it makes me very upset. So I'm gonna need you to hurry up and grow your beard back so I can continue to enjoy watching you play video games.
Well, you get to see it right here, live in your face.
I actually.
So my good game, it literally happened like 20 minutes ago. Me and Wope just happened to stumble across like a Smash room that's going on Collision, and we just happened to stumble into I stumbled into like top 16. I think Wope stumbled into like top 8 or top 12.
It was top 8, like top 6 that I got to see.
And from start to finish, like that tournament was nothing but hype. There was one, like our favorite, me and Wope's one of our favorite players, Riddles. He plays Terry Kazuya. He was in a tournament. He was doing well. He took out like the top player, MK Leo. He 3-0'd him. That was a shocker. And then freaking this random like player that I think I saw one time playing, he played a Incineroar Sky J. And he had a run. Like the game was just so hype. And then Riddles reverse 3-0'd one annoying player, Sonics. I know you or Micah probably don't know, but like just a very annoying player. But overall, very hyped tournament. And this shows like one reason why like fighters are so like amazing to watch. Just all like when you have a hype match, it's very, very exciting to watch.
I don't think there's a better esport to watch than fighting games. Like Call of Duty, Rocket League, those are cool, but fighting games is just, I don't know. There's something about it.
They're built different, man.
100%.
So my good game of the week, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go with getting my capture card, setting up the stream, making it look a whole lot nicer. Like I said earlier, I gotta make it run smoothly, but I think I'm very close to that. It's all trial and error, but it's so exciting. Like I don't think I've been this excited about like doing a project, like an artistic project, since I got my iPad back in 2020 during quarantine. No, yes, just before quarantine, I think. Anyways, when I was learning how to do some digital illustration stuff like that, that was that was pretty exciting times for me. And I still love drawing, but boy, oh boy, the amount of work that I put into this product, not only like because I want us to, progress and get sponsorships and all that stuff, but on top of that, I'm able to learn new things, learn new softwares, uh, new browser tools and stuff like that. Just constantly learning new ways to be creative, and I've always enjoyed doing that. So uh, that's going to be my good game of the week. My bad game is the boss that I'm stuck on in Wolong. His name is Lubu. He's from Dynasty Warriors, and he's one of the more iconic characters from Dynasty Warriors. And if you're not aware, Wolong is a Souls-like that is literally Dynasty Warriors, that with a skin of Dynasty Warriors laid over top of it. Which is I as much trouble as the game's given me, I've enjoyed it thoroughly. But I will say, this is the most bullshit boss so far. Wope watched me last night on stream trying to beat this son of a bitch.
Yeah, like I was watching, I think I went away for like 20 minutes and you were still on it.
Oh yeah, I mean 20 minutes is nothing in a Souls-like.
I mean, I don't know. But then like I was like, dang, he's still on this. So you didn't beat him yet?
No, and the furthest I got was I got him and Wope saw it. Like I literally had to like meditate for 5 seconds and just be like, okay, just relax. You know his moves. They're not that bad. They're just so fucking strong. And I'm at max fortitude for the level. And it's just ridiculous, because sometimes he'll double up moves. He'll add new shit in, as bosses in those types of games do. But oh my God, he's so fast. The timing window, it changes. I swear to God. I don't know. But anyways,
watching these streams as a Souls veteran, it's just I love it. I love
oh my God,
I don't hate it.
You got him to like 35% health. It wasn't.
Yeah,
it wasn't
I got him
terrible.
I got him almost to a quarter health, but the thing is,
no,
dude,
but I want to see him play Dark Souls so bad. I just want to see it. It'd be so good.
That's so now that the stream is up and running and things are going well in that regard, I'm probably going to go that route very soon. I just don't. How much is it, by the way?
Believe it.
Right now,
how much is what? Dark Souls?
You can't
Dark Souls 3.
I don't remember. It's on sale all the time now. It's like fucking 8 years old.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's still a fantastic game, so you never know. But yeah, so bad game. Lubu can suck my balls. Micah, I'm excited for you to give it a shot, and if you one-shot it, then I'm disowning you. So that's great. Your turn.
Good game of the week. I recently picked up Dragon Age Inquisition. I bought the game back when it first dropped, but I've never been a big BioWare fan. I think that's the developer that made them. They also did Mass Effect.
BioWare, yeah.
Those other big RPGs, but Dragon Age Inquisition, I got that game and I thought it was gonna be like Skyrim when I got it, and it wasn't really like that. But now I'm older and I care more about like strategy RPGs, and this game is probably the best like mix of strategy RPG with action RPG, because you can switch from like top down strategic like turn-based combat right back to like full on ARPG combat with like you switching between each character. And what makes the game kind of cool for me is you make a character, but you can control everyone in your party too. Like you can switch between the characters. Like you can play as a tank, a mage. So choosing your class really isn't that big of a deal. But the game is really fun. It's fucking huge.
It's
the
massive.
map is absolutely massive. You played it?
Yeah, I downloaded it. It's on Game Pass. I got it, or EA Play, I want to say. I got it a couple months ago. I think it's great, except for the fucking mini map. It's stupid.
Yeah, Inquisition is really big. I've never played any of the Dragon Age games, but you could easily sink like 100+ hours in. So I'm just excited to be in like a new RPG world, like that is also one that I'm not familiar with. I always like delving into open worlds that I'm like really invested in. So that's been really fun. My bad game of the week. So this week I went through like I just went through all of my old like boxes and containers from when I was a kid. I started just tearing them open looking for DS games, bro. Just absolutely shredding through boxes, and every case was empty. I just heard someone walking around my room. I thought it was
The
whatever.
DS
And
games.
what'd you say?
I said it's the DS games walking around.
They finally revealed themselves. But I was looking for a specific game called Heroes of Ruin. I've talked about it on the show before. It's a top-down RPG like Diablo-like, but it was for the 3DS. It's one of the only 3DS games that had like online multiplayer before Monster Hunter and stuff. And I just wanted to play it again. I couldn't find it, so I went online and I was like, can I get it emulated? Whatever. Emulation's a little hard to do with 3DS, but there are ways to jailbreak your 3DS, or I think it's called homebrew your
Mhm.
3DS, and you can like get all the games. I'm also talking about this allegedly. I didn't actually do this, but on my alleged attempt, I found out that my SD card in my 3DS just isn't going to work with it. So that was really frustrating to like go through 2 hours of setting that up just for it to be like not working. Um, but it didn't brick my 3DS or anything. So that's at least okay. But yeah, that was my bad game of the week.
Yeah, so Michael, you mentioned something about Tears of the Kingdom not really showing us much. We're not really getting a lot. How do we
Yes,
feel?
I was browsing Reddit, Twitter, a few different cesspools on the internet yesterday, and I was looking at different opinions on the new Tears of Kingdom because I recently redownloaded Age of Calamity. I was just looking at Breath of the Wild stuff, and people seem to be less, especially after the most recent trailer they dropped in that last Nintendo Direct, where they showed like car building or whatever. Uh, they they seem to be a little underwhelmed by what's been shown because when Breath of the Wild's first, or sorry, Tears of the Kingdom's first trailer dropped, there was a lot of hype and it seemed to be like a total tonal shift for the game. But from what we've seen since then, it's kind of just been like glorified DLC content. Now, I'm only saying that because it's a trailer. You guys got to understand, this is my favorite game of all time. So don't think that I'm trying to like shit on it. I'm just talking about the discourse and I wanted to know what their opinions were. I love Breath of the Wild. So I'm very hyped for this game. But I saw people talking about how what we've seen so far, it's the same Hyrule map, like the exact same. Uh, with there's stuff floating in the sky that'll probably act as dungeons of sorts, and then possibly where the castle and stuff has been removed from the map and floated up in the craters, there may be more content, but overall it's the same map. So the biggest argument I saw was most games, uh when they have a sequel and they reuse the map, they usually add another map on top of that. If you're going to reuse content or reuse assets, they usually add significant content to justify the sequel. This time, we haven't even really heard much about this game. So all we can go off of is the trailers. And as someone that put 300 hours into Breath of the Wild, that world looks almost identical, if not like a little few things sprinkled in there. But it did look very close to what the original map looked like. I'll be real, I don't have a problem with that necessarily because I still love the game, but I am a little underwhelmed that there's nothing new to explore because it
Well,
was a big part of Breath of the Wild was seeing that world for the first time.
here's my thing. Like, we're also there's stuff added, just that it's going to be in a more vertical ascent. Like, it's going to be more vertical. So everything we're exploring is probably going to be up in the sky. So they probably don't want to spoil so much of that, just because they still want to give you that new sense of exploration when you actually see that. We get a glimpse of it from artwork and the trailers, but they're not going to show everything with that though.
And I agree that they're not going to play their best card right off the rip. I think it's a little too early to be showing anything crazy. The game mechanics that they have shown are obviously new. Some of the enemies are the same, but there have been a few. I think there's maybe 4 new enemies I saw in the trailers so far. But when Breath of the Wild was coming out originally, by this point in its launch cycle, 3 months before launch, we're in March now, the marketing was, they were way past marketing the game. They were showing it off at like I don't know if Nintendo ever went to E3, but they were showing it at like conventions and stuff. You could play test demos for Breath of the Wild at this point in its game cycle. But here we have almost nothing to go off of for this game, and I think that is purposeful because the way games are presented now is completely changed since COVID happened. Since COVID, we've seen less games be more upfront about what a game is like, and they more so just shadow drop it. Maybe they do marketing a month before a game drops, but that's at most that we've seen because most people are afraid of another Cyberpunk. So with Breath of the Wild 2, it was always meant to be a DLC when it first started development. It wasn't meant to be a second game. They just realized we have so much plans for DLC, we might as well make a second game. So some people just feel that this is the first Nintendo game to be $70. If it's going to be a glorified DLC, they just don't want to be feeling like ripped off because they hype it up to be this crazy sequel. And it may just be Breath of the Wild with an extra story and some more content, but like mostly the same map and mostly the same gameplay. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I get that, but at the same token, Breath of the Wild 1 is worth so much. Like to this day, people are still discovering shit that you can do with it. So
I
with
think the
that
question
game
isn't more so
engine,
if you can do things with it. It's is it significant enough to justify spending $70 more? Because like I could go back and play more Breath of the Wild.
yeah, but after 5 years, there's no way. There's no way because if this was planned DLC, they must have been working on it since the game came out, if not before the game
No,
came out.
they started development 2019.
And when did Breath of the Wild come out?
2017.
2017.
Oh, okay.
March 3rd of 2017.
So
Okay.
they've been working on the game since then.
Oh, well, then, yeah, I don't think there's anything to be worried about. I can't see them fumbling this. This is like the most important that Legend of Zelda has been since Nintendo 64. I would
Have you
argue
guys-
that Twilight Princess had like a run, right?
Have you guys
But this is
analyzed
different.
the trailers that they have dropped, like to a
Not
certain
really.
degree? It in comparison to, and let me give context. I played Breath of the Wild a year after it originally dropped. I got my Switch at the end of 2017, so I wasn't really a part of the Breath of the Wild hype. I got to see all the trailers and stuff after I beat the game, and then I realized, oh my god, these trailers represent the game so well. The stuff that they show now in comparison to what they were showing back then, it doesn't even compare. Like the game looks way more cooler when you look at the Breath of the Wild trailers, the music, all that stuff looks way better. But what they have shown with Tears of the Kingdom, I'll be real, the only thing that has like made me go ooh is the like flying stuff, the being up in the sky. I'm like, ooh, this looks interesting. But the car, someone compared the car building mechanic to like the
The Banjo Kazooie
nuts
nuts and
bolts.
bolts.
They were
Mhm.
like, they were saying it's like Hyrule nuts and bolts or something.
No, I
'cause,
saw. I thought that immediately, and I was like, "Oh."
I'll be real. I don't want it. I don't care. It'll probably be a very minor part of the game, but I don't care.
It's very weird. Like, why would they add that to Breath of the Wild?
Well, I'm sure there's a like puzzle part of it.
Yeah,
that they're
sure,
gonna use it
but
but also he has a bike. We don't
Yeah.
need to make cars.
that feels so
Um,
unnecessary.
I think it's more so to show, because like when Breath of the Wild came out, you saw like how many people just manually like put things together in order to actually do certain things.
Well,
And
the
you saw
game
more of
is
that
supposed to,
with the
like-
master mode. So maybe they're showing off, all right, you can actually, this is now an intentional part of game mechanic rather than
Yes.
being something that you can just find out and do.
Breath of the Wild is supposed to be a sandbox, and when you play that game, there's a million ways you can take on combat scenarios. You can always take it on the same way, but you can play out a situation a million different ways. So I'm sure them showing off these mechanics in the trailers is just showing vets like, hey, guess what we've added, all this stuff. But for someone who's more interested in story, or someone who's more interested in like new significant mechanics, like maybe more open world, like better AI in the open world, I'll say that, like something along the lines of Red Dead, like people living out lives kind of stuff. Seeing something like that and showing that off, I think would definitely get me more hype than just the new powers and stuff. Like, because like I already expected that. I already expected them to add new building mechanics, new puzzle solving mechanics. Maybe not the car building stuff, but the flying stuff. Like as soon as I saw the first trailer, I was like, okay, cool, we're gonna be able to fly around.
Well, they
I'm
didn't really
not.
show that with Breath of the Wild either. And this is also like when it comes to like an actual like continuum of a story, this is still like it's still new in the Legend of Zelda series. Because when Breath of the Wild came out, that's the first time where you actually have like one continuum like Legend of Zelda franchise, because now all the past games, you know how there's like 3 different storylines, they all merge into Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, and
And
they've
then it
shown
I
wasn't
still
really
don't
that
little
much
bit of
understand how
story.
that shit works.
So the first tech, like in canonically, the first Legend of Zelda game is Skyward Sword. After that, I think I want to say it was Ocarina of Time, and Ocarina of Time after that diverges into 3 different storylines based off how the game ends.
Yeah, there's different timelines.
Interesting.
So I guess what I'm asking you guys now is, with the stuff that you've seen, do you feel in any way like your hype has been shrunk a little bit, or are you more like I'm still like 100%?
I'm gonna get the game. Am I like hype? No, but I'm gonna get the
Yeah,
game.
I'm gonna get the
Yeah.
game for
Yeah,
sure.
same. Like, I didn't even play Breath of the
No, I
Wild until I want to say like maybe late 2019, early 2020, something like that. So like I played it late. But after play, because I've never been a huge Legend of Zelda guy. I've played a couple of the games here and there, but going in the Breath of the Wild, I was like, all right, let's just play it. Let's just, just to say that I've done it. And then once I was finished with it, I was like, that was one of the greatest games I've ever played in my life. So the hype has never really been there for the series, but I want to say Tears of the Kingdom, like, because it was such a grand experience for me. I don't care if it's the same map. Like God of War 2018 had, or Ragnarok had the same map essentially as Ragnarok with some additions here and there, but you can go back into, especially Midgar's, like the same thing, Um, and I don't
Well,
think,
I have a counterpoint to that, but yeah.
yeah, but like I don't think it's not going to be the same exact experience. Like it can be the same map, but it's going to be a different experience. And the verticality in the next game is going to be world changing in terms of that franchise. So like when people are like, oh, people make such a big fuss about reusing assets, quote unquote, especially with AAA titles when it comes to open world titles, stuff like that. Like they change things. The things that they don't change, it's because they work. And I think that the developers for Legend of Zelda know exactly that. And we can go back to the Horizon games. Chris would be able to take this conversation and run with it, but I don't think that it's as big of a deal as a lot of people are making it, especially with, again, the verticality aspect is going to change the entire experience.
The difference between what you're saying with God of War and Breath of the Wild is Breath of the Wild, half of the gameplay is in that open world and climbing it and discovering it. I'll be real, as someone who 100% the game and then more, I can tell you I know every single inch of that map without, like, by heart. So I'm still excited for the game, but I'm not as excited as you might be because you didn't even play the DLCs to go back through that map. Because yeah, as much as I love and have memories with it, I do want something new. And you say the verticality will change it, not as much as you might think, because it's not like
Yeah, but that's just
they're
speculation.
adding insane. It's just dungeons in the sky. It's not like they already had something like
It's
that
not
in
going
the
to be just
DLCs.
dungeons in the
I
sky.
see what they're doing.
It's not going to be just dungeons in the sky. And if it is, then I will stand corrected and I
You're
will bite
probably
my
going to be
tongue.
corrected, bro, because I played this game more than you. I know how the game works.
Okay,
But
but
the
you
thing
haven't
is-
played this game.
But they already have released information on what those things in the sky are. They're dungeons, Adam.
It's not, but yes, but there's going to be story points, not just one, but multiple that involve the verticality.
I get that. The argument is not about the verticality being like, the actual mechanics and stuff are probably great. It's the argument that they're making is that the game is it justifying the brand new $70 Nintendo price point? If we're gonna spend $70 in the game, are we getting $70 worth of new content, not $70 or $30 worth of an expansion and then the rest of what we already had in Breath of the Wild.
I think that
I
yes,
am
there will
telling
be
you right now, I am playing the game regardless, but I am hesitant just because of what I've seen. I know the game really well. A lot of it looks the fucking same, and I put an unfathomable amount of hours into the game. So I know, like, okay, yeah, I've seen this before. I know that this isn't new. I know this isn't new. For someone who maybe doesn't, yeah, I can see why the game like isn't, underwhelming for you a little bit. But for the people who have, I can understand where they're coming from.
The developers
100%.
have to know that. They have to know that people have spent hundreds of hours into the
I'm
game.
sure that's why they delayed it too.
And Breath of the Wild broke records. It kind of broke the mold, and a lot of games have, it changed the way games were made after that.
yeah. My final
Tears of the
point on
Kingdom
this
doesn't have to do that.
right, but I mean it has to
We're
add
going
a
in
lot.
with blind hype, by the way. There's
My
not a lot of info out on this game.
Exactly. And because they've built up so much goodwill with that one game, they don't need any more.
on the
The
same
sequel was
That's a
sold the
slippery
moment it
slope
was
to take.
announced.
on the same token, the other side is there's blind hype, but there's also blind criticism. Like we just don't know yet. Like we don't know enough about this game to say explicitly like that's not gonna it's not gonna be worth the $70 price point. My personal opinion is that it's gonna be there's gonna be about $50 worth of new content and new experiences. The other 20 is the reused assets, the same gameplay mechanics, stuff like that. That's kind of how I'm gauging it. Now, 50 out of 70 equals more than 50%, so probably worth buying. Now, it is Nintendo, we have to remember. This is Nintendo. They want your money. So you're going to fucking pay them. And it is what it is. And it's going to be a good game. It's going to be a great game. But is it going to be worth all the $70? Maybe not.
Nintendo won't. Someone said you think Nintendo wouldn't just charge you $70 for the same
Right.
game. You haven't been paying attention the last few years.
Do I think that they're going to...
scenario.
I think
it's not like this isn't a console selling game. This is just a game coming out for the Switch. They don't need to split this between the Wii U and the Switch. This isn't a console seller. They're not hyping it up as if it is. They don't have to really knock this out of the park in any way. They don't have any pressure on them. If it drops and Breath of the Wild isn't Game of the Year, they don't care. If it gets 7 out of 10s or 8 out of 10s, they don't care because they're gonna make the money. And also, it's not like this is being used to like market a brand new console or anything. So yeah, the fucking worries are justified, and I understand where people are coming from. But am I like, no, I don't. I'm gonna boycott it unless they show me more. No, I love the game. I love the game probably more than most people in this call. But I'm gonna always stand with like the consumer people, like the people who feel a type of way, because we've been fucked over so many times in the past like 3 years. They have every right to only see 3 trailers worth of really little content, and we're going off of blind hype because we love the game. There's almost no new content in those trailers, Adam. I've seen the fucking trailer. I've analyzed them, and I love Breath of the Wild. I've 100% it. I've seen all the fucking gameplay mechanics. There's not a lot of new shit in those trailers, and I know that's on purpose for them, but for the people that, feel a type of way about it, they have every right to.
I think this is a good transition. Also, Wope, put a battery in the fucking smoke alarm. This is a good transition for the next topic. What game have you spent the most hours on? Micah, obviously, you said that you spent an unfathomable amount of hours on this game. Is this the game that you spent the most time playing, do you think?
I have like 360 hours on one profile, and then maybe like another 60 on another, and then maybe like less than 15 before that. But I would definitely consider Breath of the Wild like top 2. Probably like Rocket League or Minecraft is my actual most played, but I can't really track all of that.
You should just say you
But
spent like
Breath of the
600
Wild is
hours
probably
in
my most
Smash.
played game. But mostly because when Breath of the Wild I first got it, I had like a week straight off that I could just sit there and play it, and that was a significant amount of time.
Well, Jamal just raised a good question. Do you think that Smash is probably the most played game? Because didn't you say you had like...
wow, I totally forgot Smash. Yeah, Smash Ultimate's probably my most played. Easily 700 hours, and then more on other people's consoles. A lot, probably like 1,000 hours plus in Smash.
Wolpe, I want to hear. I have a good idea. I have a good idea as to what it is,
Yeah, you already know.
but go ahead, explain.
Um, okay, so only because I do not know if there is a way to track how many hours you played on an Xbox 360 game, because I did put ungodly hours into Tekken Tag Tournament just off of customization alone, let alone playing the shit, sitting in waiting rooms, practice mode, labbing shit. But I can tell you, I have at least 3,000 hours in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate.
3,000 hours.
Yes.
Yeah, game came out in 2018. You never stop.
Listen, 2020, I was getting paid to do nothing.
That's
And I just used to leave my Switch on, wake up, play all day, 10 hours, whatever, go to bed. Shower? For what? Eat? Nah.
The average
Psych,
Smash
nah.
player.
But
the average
it was
Smash player,
the average
dude.
Smash player. Yeah, nah. I was the average Smash player.
Oh,
for
just
2 months.
just reeking of Super Smash Brothers. Ugh.
It was. There were some times. I think Tekken Tag might be second as a franchise. I think I would go Pokemon. I don't know. I spent a lot of time playing Melee too, but
Oh boy, if we're talking franchises, there's some high rollers in this regard. But Jamal, I'm curious because your spectrum of gaming is honestly probably pretty wide.
There's a lot of contenders. I have to name contenders that actually just help me think. So Kingdom Hearts 2, I played that game so many times just for whatever reasons. I would like have races with like people. I'll just play the game just because. Like that's one of them. Super Smash Bros. Melee or Mario Kart Double Dash. Like that was playing GameCube. When I was in daycare, I'll bring my GameCube to daycare and just play then, like whenever I wasn't at school. Like that's all we would just do. Breath of the Wild, contender. Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. I know I spent at least 400 hours on that game.
Jesus.
And that's why I was in college too. Like I spent a lot of hours on that game, but like thinking if it's not Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, it has to be Super Smash Brothers like Melee. I can't track how many hours, but I know like one of those two is definitely like the highest. If I had to say recorded hours that I can actually keep track of, is Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate.
You ever
spent
think
so
that you
many-
played a game a lot as a kid and then you go check the hours or like the save and you're like not even 30% through the game? You're like, fuck, I thought I put like 400 hours in this shit when I was 8. I've definitely gone back and like checked old like Wii games and DS games and I've been like, oh, I used to love this shit. It's like I haven't
Yeah.
even beat the tutorial.
bro, even going back to the Switch, going to other games, it's like, wow, only 65 hours, only 100 hours. I have like 30 hours playing Crash Team Racing, which doesn't seem like anywhere near enough.
Speaking of which, dude, the amount of time that I put into that game on the original PlayStation, oh my god. The original PlayStation and PS2, because obviously backwards compatibility. But the amount of times that I fucking played that game, I can't even imagine the hour. Like if it was all tracked and put in front of me, I'd be like, yeah, that's pretty accurate. Probably pushing 350, 400 hours. I'd say that, you know, if we're talking franchises,
Ooh, SSX. I put
yeah.
Whoa.
Games like that, like if you're talking franchises, like obviously Halo, for me, Gears of War, Final
Pokemon, Mario Kart,
yeah,
Smash.
yeah, right. Like it's so easy to say, yeah, I've
The
spent
pick up and plays.
hundreds of
Yeah.
hours, right? But if we're talking specific games, I want to say probably aside from Rocket League, because that's another pick up and play type of game. I've gone through and I've beaten Final Fantasy X multiple times. The most recent time I didn't want 100% it, but it was the remaster version on Xbox Game Pass and all that stuff. And I went through, did all the fucking celestial weapons, the ultimate weapons in that game. Going through, beating the Dark Aeons. Not all of them because Yojimbo is a fucking piece of shit cheating fuck. But aside from that, I beat a couple of them, which was crazy. Never thought I'd ever get to that point. So easily, if I'm combining those two games, I'm pushing probably like 700 hours just like over the past 2 decades. Congratulations on all the games played, boys. Now,
Painful hours.
shameful
Dedication.
hours, without a doubt.
Depression.
Man, what? No sleep.
Speaking of a game keeping your attention for a ridiculous amount of time, what's more important to you? Like, what draws you in more? Why do you keep playing it? Obviously, there's a ton of different reasons why, but out of these two, what would keep you more grounded into the story, into the gameplay, into the mechanics of the game? Between quality, aka the graphics and the fidelity, versus performance, aka the frame rate and how the game runs. What's more important to you guys?
Can I open this one?
No.
Fuck you. I went last last time.
Go ahead.
Doing a serpentine.
So what I was thinking is, no, I'm just fucking with you. Go ahead.
Fucking assholes here. I think.
So to be honest, it's really more about.
You're such a piece of shit. As soon as
No, you got it.
grasp on what I need to say. Fuck, and I lost it again.
Good shit.
I think with newer times, I've grown to appreciate graphics more. But I think that might just be a product of being spoiled by newer consoles and stuff like that. Because when I do go back and I play a game like BioShock, which I did pick up recently, which is I think it's an original Xbox game, yeah?
No, 360.
It's a 360 game?
Mm-hmm.
I thought BioShock was not. Okay. It looks like
Wait,
shit.
really?
But
Oh wow.
You thought BioShock was original Xbox?
bro, I was like
Maybe like late stage.
You were a dumb fucking kid.
Yeah, so I fucking froze up. So I tried to play BioShock again, and I realized, yeah, this game looks like shit, but it's probably the most fun I've had with an FPS in a while, including Atomic Heart. And I think I go back and forth about it. I think I do want my game to look good, because if it looks like shit and it's not playing very well, I'm definitely not having a great time. But I can like kind of get over a bad game if it's pretty, but I can't really get over sometimes I can't get over a game if it looks ugly and it plays well. It depends on the game. But there's some 360 games I'm like, I'll never touch that again because it looks like butt. Just won't. But there are games that like had a great art style for their time, and maybe they don't have the greatest like HD textures, but they look good for like what they were trying to do at the time, and therefore I can play it then. But like you said, it's a case by case basis. It just depends on the game.
That's interesting because, ironically, as the older I've got, the more I've prioritized performance, because it's like at this point, pretty much every game, at least AAA titles and a lot of indie games, they all look really good, right? So every game is gonna you can trust that they're gonna have the little hairs on the face. You can trust that cliffs, like when you're climbing them, the little rocks are gonna fall off when you're doing that, right? But if the game slows down to support those, those graphical improvements, then it's like, well, how long do I have to stare at this pretty scene where, oh, the sunset looks really nice, it looks real, but I can't look away from it because the fucking game's frozen. So it's like, as you get on, when you have to dedicate more time to the fucking games, because on top of that, guess what? The next Assassin's Creed is going to be 800 fucking hours. So it can look great, but if it's running slow and the game doesn't perform well, then it's not going to be 800 hours. It's going to be 1,200 hours. So,
well, and I feel like that's a matter of hardware.
For sure, but also, like, you can have an Xbox Series X, you can have a PS5, you could be playing on PC. Now, you can customize PC more so, but, like, if the game is designed to run a certain way and it doesn't run well, aka Cyberpunk, there are times Cyberpunk did look really nice, right? Especially if you're prioritizing the graphics. But on some consoles,
God, why'd you mention that? That's gonna
even
make me change my.
see, and even on the series, dude, like if it's fucking blowing up in your face, if Jackie's asshole is in your mouth while you're riding in the car with him at the beginning of the game, but hey, his asshole looks really good, then are you really having a good time playing that game? So
My first time playing through, I wouldn't have agreed with you, but now I can. The first time through, I think the story and graphics, which is true to my first point, was enough to carry the experience for me to play. I didn't really mind too much. I know I got angry sometimes, but I didn't mind too much when the game was running like shit. The graphics were so good, and I had a brand new console, so I was just in the moment.
you were feeling yourself.
I agree. I agree.
Wolpe, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, when we're talking about performance, are we talking about just frame rate, or are we talking about like glitchiness, bugginess, just
All
in
of it.
general?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we're talking all of it,
I was thinking like, oh, frames just drop.
no, but even with certain games, even a frame rate drop can kind of take you out of the immersion, right? We always talk about, especially if you're talking about like a horror game, if you're playing a horror game and let's say the frame rate drops when they're supposed to be like, I don't want to say a jump scare, but like a set piece or something, right? It's going to take you out. It's going to kind of, minimize the experience. It doesn't have to look amazing all the time. And I feel like you said, I can forgive not poor graphics, but I can forgive not perfect graphics if the game runs super well. The only time where I've like deliberately ignored both, and I hate to say this, Pokemon.
Let's go.
Pokemon is like, I wish I was here last week so I could have said this with you. Not only is the game ugly, but it runs like shit.
Right.
And I was able to forgive it just off of the legacy and off of the gameplay and knowing what I was getting into. But it's really crazy seeing like how poor performance has turned that game like so like it. No Pokemon game has ever lagged ever, like in life, especially not in the boxes, the organization. So seeing that is like, wow, I can't, the game can be ugly. That's fine. We don't expect, Horizon level graphics from Game Freak, but we expect good performance. We expect it to be clean. And Nintendo usually prides itself on clean games. If they're not the most detailed, at least they're cute and clean. We got none of that. So at this point, your game can look like whatever the fuck it wants, but it has to run well.
Pokemon fans, what do you prefer, graphics or performance? Neither.
Dead ass. Dead ass. I just want more Pokemon. That's it.
We just want Mega Evolution.
I want Charizard with 19 horns. Then it's all forgivable.
I want a 3-headed Charizard.
No, but dead ass,
like the game runs at 1 frame per second.
Just give me a pile of shit as long as you call it Mew 3.
That's really what it is. And when it comes down to like, now that I'm a next gen boy, I'm looking at performance rather than graphics. Like they do a lot of a work to make shit look great. Like foliage density is such a huge thing in open world games, and you really start to notice it when you make the jump. Like looking at a game like The Witcher or any game that's outside, right? Everything is pretty.
Now.
Facts.
Every game is green open world.
Yeah, that's it. So the graphics are less and less important because what I'm seeing here, I can also get this elsewhere. Does your game run well? Can it keep my attention all the time? Is it fluid all the way through? And you need to make, I feel like you need to make whatever sacrifices you need to make as a game developer. What the fuck do I know, right? But to make sure the game runs well. And that's all I'm gonna say about that. Sacrifice graphics for performance every time.
Jamal.
Performance all day. And I didn't really think about this until we actually started talking about this. One, I never really cared for like when I think graphics, I always think like realism, and I never really care for realism. If you want to go through my gaming history, most of the games I play are not the most like realistic looking. I play realistic looking games, but they don't make up the most of my history. And when it comes to like the quality, since that's like our one of our two sides of the topic, I put art style over like graphical quality, because if you have a good art style, you can make it look very good. And as you said, Adam, we have a lot of great looking games, but at the end of the day, it's really just all about how the game performs. I don't want to have to go into like a great looking game and then like, but then once the performance done, like, and if it frustrates me enough, I'm gonna get out of it. Now, there are times where I don't really, I can sacrifice, or, I'll give some leeway to the, performance or frame rate. Let's just say frame rate in this instance. As Wobe said, Pokemon, another one where it didn't really take me as much, just because I guess the quality of the game was great in itself. And I can like give some leeway to the performance, was Breath of the Wild, especially in like handheld mode, or when getting to like the Kakariko Forest, since that was like the most place that the frame rate dropped the most. But other than that, all the games I play like are generally just great frame rate, because that's generally just what's most important to me. That keeps my immersion in, because there's not really much else taking me out. But yeah, but quality, if it's graphical, but if focus more on art style, because you can make a cell shaded game look really well. You can see it with like Odyssey, saw with Breath of the Wild. You can have great realistic looking games, but I don't think it's really, but it's not the most important aspect.
Yeah, the one game that came to mind when you were explaining that point. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with this. When Shadow of the Colossus first came out on the PlayStation 2, the graphics were, they were solid. They weren't the best that we had seen up until that point, but they were good, right? But the way that they got around like the game looking like shit when it was performing is they utilized motion blur very, very well. So when you're climbing the colossi and you're running around, and every time you turn the camera, there's major motion blur. But they would cut it so quickly is that so that you wouldn't like everything in the background and like all the surfaces and stuff wouldn't freak out. And they figured out a way like they motion blur was a thing before Shadow of the Colossus, obviously. But the game would have run just slightly worse. And honestly, the game didn't run the best, but it ran decently well when it needed to. And it would have done worse had they not utilized the motion blur the way that they did. I can't remember where I saw that. Like, there's always these gaming documentaries and stuff like that behind the curtain type of videos and whatever all over the internet. But that was just something that I saw a long time ago. And what you just said, like the art style, and even more so, like using the tools that are available to make the game look better, even when it technically doesn't look as good as other titles that prioritize, the graphical quality.
You can even look back at like the San Andreas remastered. Like they tried to emphasize making the game look better, but like for example, how San Andreas has like a layer of fog, so you can't really like the draw distance is kind of short comparatively speaking. When they remove that, because now of course we're on higher quality hardware, you see like how small the world really is, and sometimes it kind of it takes you out of it because you weren't supposed to see all that. And it definitely depends on what type of game. Like if I'm playing a fighting game, right, I don't give a shit what it looks like. It needs to run perfectly, especially if I'm playing online. I need rollback netcode. I need things that are going to make my inputs match when I press them. So fuck graphical quality at this point, because that's not what I'm looking for in that game. I need peak performance, or else I'm not having fun, period.
I was going to say one of the more underappreciated games that I feel like because of its art style and because of like the scale that it has for its time period is Skyrim. It's not the prettiest game in the world, but for its art style, it definitely gets the point across that it's like a darker fantasy world. And then the game plays. It's buggy as all hell, but it plays smoothly. If you have it, fucking plays on the Switch. If you have the hardware, even when I played it on the 360 back in the day, it ran well. It just loaded like fucking 5 minutes. But I think it's aged so well. Like people play it even to this day and mod it to this day because that art style and like the direction they took with that game in both gameplay, like the immersive gameplay and its looks. Bethesda was way ahead of its time when they made that game in 2012, I think, or 2011, I think it was. And I remember when the game dropped, I remember watching like G4 interviews about it and stuff. And people were saying, this is the last game you'll ever need to play. Like you can live out your whole life on this game. And to this day, I think a game like that, where it might not be the prettiest, but it has a great art style. And then it also plays into that art style with the first person action, the role playing. Like you can really stand the test of time if you just go 100% with a vision and not just trying to like make a 4K pretty game and then also have it run 60 FPS because that's all it is. It's just a bunch of specs to me. It's not like you reflected that in the gameplay.
And also graphics will always get out, like they're always going to get outdone.
Yeah.
A good performing game at launch will perform even better later.
Mm-hmm.
But it might also look worse by comparison. So that's kind of the thing that you have to worry about.
It's just the balance of those two things and making sure that your game stays fun.
Yeah. Art style, I think, takes a lot of the pressure off of graphical quality when it's done right.
Right.
So speaking of standing the test of time, last segment of the show today, do you guys have a favorite or most memorable guidebook of games of years past? I'll start. The guidebook that I remember most clearly and that I used the absolute most is coming back to this game, Final Fantasy VII. The guidebook, by the time that it was done and thrown away, I want to say that nearly half of the pages were like torn just because of how many times. Now, those things were never durable, right? But maybe now, like if you do get a guidebook, but who's going to do that? You have Google. Back then, you didn't really have Google. You just had the early internet days. Maybe you would have some threads on some websites where people were discussing the game, but not back in the 90s, not back in 97. You got a guidebook and you followed it to the T and you tried 100% the game best you could, and that was it. That I remember it clearly. It didn't have the front cover anymore. Or no, it had the front cover, didn't have the back cover anymore. And by the end of its days, a lot of pages were torn, ripped. I don't know what the fuck happened. Back then we didn't really have any pets that would get into shit, tear books apart.
Well, you were the pet.
Yeah, no, I was the pet. So that's by far the most time that I've spent with a guidebook for any game personally.
It was very rare that I got new games. Since I lived in an apartment complex, a lot of the kids, we used to just kind of trade games around. And this is like Nintendo 64 days, right? So we would just kind of pass around the cartridge. So I didn't really get to read a lot of guidebooks. And when I got my PS2, my brother was stationed in Korea, so he sent me all of those games from there. And then they would just be like a blank disc with the name of the game written in Sharpie. Like that's literally how my Kingdom Hearts was. And so I didn't really get a lot of guidebooks, but the one that I looked at the most was actually Mario Kart 64, because that was the first game that I got with my 64, of course. So and they had like these 3D maps of each course, and it was the only time that I think they've ever really. I think they had it for Double Dash also, but I just loved looking at them, like. And they're so simple, so old, but I just loved looking at those maps and reading the stats of the characters and blah 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 blah. that's really the one that sticks out to me the most.
There's two, both of them. Like there's two I remember fondly. There's Kingdom Hearts 2 guidebook, and then there's Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire guidebook. But I think the one that probably I spent the most with is the Ruby and Sapphire one. And because internet wasn't really that much of a thing, like everybody really had access to freely just go on the internet and stuff like that. You kind of just like guidebooks for some important, especially with Pokemon. You gotta figure out like where Pokemon's at, like because you don't know if you necessarily could have it because of version exclusives, like where Legendary is at. And then one thing that was I really used that guidebook for, and this was the only that
you talk about like the Prima guide, like the one that you had to buy. Oh,
yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The one I use that guidebook mainly because you had to like read the unknown like letters when you're trying to catch the Reggies, or when you're trying to because like I think at one point in Reggies you had to like have a Wailord and a Relicanth, a certain order in the party.
The shit's
you
in
had to read the
fucking
unknowns.
Braille.
You had to dig, and using a Braille, like, bro,
like there's
I
no
use
way
that
you would have figured it
guidebook
out yourself,
religiously. There's no way, exactly. So that's why that guidebook is the most memorable for me, because I use that for every inch of that game, and so it was just a great experience having that guidebook. I was really just trying to look for it. I wonder if I had it. I don't know if I still do, but if I do, that'll be great. I'll have to show it one day.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you got that shit somewhere.
I had a idea of what guidebook I was going to talk about, but I think the one I remember most wasn't one I actually had. I had to look it up on a laptop. It was for Pokemon Emerald, and I didn't have my own laptop at the time or any of that, but I did take out like a journal and I wrote down, like I took notes on everything,
that's nice.
Including maps. I was like 7 probably, and including like the maps, how to like you said, plot out not the team you needed to fight the Reggies, but actually the steps you had to take to you had to count out your steps in the path that they wanted you to. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I literally drew it out as a kid, like just arrow 5 steps, arrow to the right 4 steps, and then I also did like the digging up in certain places and where legendaries were and stuff. It's not an actual guidebook. I think I just found like information about it online, but I basically made my own.
You made your own guidebook.
Yeah, I made my own guidebook, and I probably could find it somewhere. It's just a bunch of scribbles and nonsense, but
yeah,
I had a lot of fun.
There's a couple penises on the top left corner on every other page.
It's just admitting to crimes.
Reggie Dick.
But yeah, that's the most fun I've had with like a guide or whatever as a kid, especially because even like you said, even then, I think the most that there was for like game guides, there wasn't even like YouTube guides. There was just like game facts.
Yeah,
I'm so mad you said Reggie Dick. Reggie Cock was right there.
I mean, whatever.
It literally rhymes with rock. Come on.
And yeah.
What? Reggie Rock.
Pokemon.
Don't look at me like
guides. Honestly, Pokemon guides are probably some of the most fun out there, if I had to be honest, because it's simple and it's straight to the point. It's not like a Zelda guide where they're like, oh, well, you have to gather all the Triforces and then bring them to this temple where you gotta talk to the man. Like, no. Pokemon's just like, go to this place, bring a fucking Diglett, dig.
It's like your own personal Pokedex.
Yeah.
They need to bring those back. I feel like I remember Super Mario Odyssey, like in the menu, like how they would describe each world and blah, 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 blah was akin to something that you would see if there was a physical guidebook. The last time I remember even getting anything special in the like game box was when I got GTA 5, and it came with like the map of Los Santos and like things that you could look at and blah blah blah. There's no directions or anything, but there's at least a map
in case, and it came with so much stuff. It came with stickers. It came with a full map of Night City, a poster. They were really trying to go hard with the marketing because they knew that game was shit.
This is like standard edition that you got.
What'd you say?
Standard edition.
And it was a gift, but I have the sticker on my laptop. They're actually really cool. But yeah. That's probably the last game that I got that they don't really do it anymore. Just like give you stuff in the cases. they've had to cut costs over the years by them not increasing the game prices, because I found out like SNES games used to be like $60. It's like,
Oh, yeah.
so they've been slowly losing money the more that time has gone on making these games. So I get it, but give me back my game maps.
As much time as we could spend talking about this continuously, it is time to wrap up the show. So,
Boo.
yeah, I
No,
know.
not boo. I am clocking in right this second.
This has been episode 6 of Pixel Hate, where the H is supposed to be silent, but I just said it. This is your favorite guidebook podcast. This is the only guidebook podcast, by the way. This is the only podcast. So,
I have a guidebook to listening to our podcast.
yes. We hope that you guys have enjoyed all the discourse that we supplied today. A lot of topics, wide-ranging show. I'd say one of the more wide-ranging episodes that we've had of any show in a long time. But that's just more things to listen to for the audience. So make sure you guys subscribe to the YouTube channel, PixelHate on YouTube. We have a link tree for all the socials. We are PixelHate on Twitch as well, where the Twitch or the streams are going to be a lot higher quality going forward. Really excited about that, as I mentioned earlier. Make sure you guys tune in. Join the party. We really appreciate all the love, all the support going forward. But
my God, are we playing Warzone?
Very soon, very soon. With that said, it's time to get off the game.
Let's get on some other games.
We're all logging off. We will see you later. Goodbye.